Let's make legendary Pokémon, based on Native American mythology for my Pokémon game concept, Pokémon Eventide. You guys have been asking, and asking, and asking, so here we are, the legendary Pokémon and their lore. But before we begin, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe, and hit that notification bell to keep up to date with future videos on the Cornera region. Alright, legendary lore time. In the ancient days of Cornera, there was one mythical being, Rakanara, the Gaia Pokemon. Legends tell that Rakanara created the Cornera region by making an enormous web of land that pulled 4 regions together into one. In the process of these regions combining, 2 powerful Pokemon were formed, Sohale and Bonate. Sohale was formed by an eruption from Cornera's newly forged volcano. Some say the eruption shot up so high into the sky it touched the sun, making Sohale a beacon of light. Bonate, on the other hand, was crafted from the desolate darkness of the deepest caves, shaped from the colliding land masses. So naturally, with Sohale being born of light and Bonate being born of darkness, they were destined to oppose each other. All was well for a time, until Sohale began to gain favor in Cornera, even being worshipped as a god for its wondrous glow. Sohale gave special treatment to the people for their worship, even creating 3 Pokemon for their benefit. Kukupoli, the Flora Pokemon, to create wonderful plant life for the arid region, and music to entertain them. Nymbolfa, the Storm Pokemon, to create rains to help those plants grow. And finally, Poloto, the Snowstorm Pokemon, to cover the mountains with snow and help begin the harvest season. Sohale's popularity made Bonate incredibly jealous. His jealousy turned to hate and anger. This dark surge of emotion began infecting Cornera and its Pokemon with shadows. This darkness continued to spread, and Bonate in his rage created 3 agents of chaos to attack Cornera. 1 to cause the people to fight amongst themselves, 1 to flood the crops, and another to burn the forests. Sohale came to defend Cornera, and used its incredible radiance to battle Bonate, driving it and the Agents of Darkness back into the dark depths of Cornera. The battle took its toll on Cornera though. The radiant and shadow energy from the Pokemon had seeped into parts of the land, forming odd crystals. The people look back at this battle and celebrate Sohale by worshipping the sun, as they believe it is the closest thing to matching its radiance. It is believed that Bonate is waiting in the shadows to strike back at Sohale in solemn loneliness where no one worships it. The tale of their great battle remains in the annals of Corneran history. Now that we know the lore behind them, let's take a closer look at these Pokemon. Let's begin with the trio created by Sohale, titled the Gift Trio, for the gifts they provided humanity and the fact they were a gift from Sohale. These 3 are all based on Hopi deities, or Kachina, that are involved in the Pawamu ceremony, aka the Bean Planting Festival. First up is Kukupoli, the Flora Pokemon, a grass sound type. This Pokemon can create music that sprouts flora by letting the air flow through its tail as it runs. The faster it runs, the more plants it grows. Kukupoli is based on 3 things: Kokopelli, Aholi, and the Greater Roadrunner. Kokopelli is a Native American deity of fertility, agriculture, and music. If you live in Western America, you are bound to have seen this guy around. Whether on a bumper sticker or a shirt, this guy has a lot of merch. Where the Roadrunner aspect comes in is in some depictions of Kokopelli, particularly the Kachina dolls of him from the Hopi people, show him with an almost beak-like protrusion coming from his mouth. From there, I kinda had the picture of its tail being a flute, and the rest fell into place. Lastly, Aholi, a Kachina that is the patron saint of the Pikyas, aka the Young Corn clan. The colors of his robe represent flowers and the brightness of summer. Kukupoli's name comes from Kokopelli and Aholi, obviously, and Kaku, the family of birds that the Greater Roadrunner comes from. Next is Nymbolfa, the Storm Pokemon, a flying water type. And before you say it, yes, Nymbolfa's nuts. Haha, very funny. Let's move on. Nymbolfa can create fierce rainstorms with its mighty howl, which is of course a reference to wolves howling at the moon. The moon affects the tides affect the weather, full circle. Nymbolfa's name comes from Nimbostratus, the dark gray clouds that produce rain, and are incorporated into Nymbolfa's design. It also comes from Nimble, wolf, and lastly, Ahola, another Kachina of the Hopi people. Ahola performs on the first night of Pawamu. The next morning they will place cornmeal in front of each home as a prayer for rain. Lastly is Poloto, the Snowstorm Pokemon, an ice ground type. Piloto can summon massive snowstorms that can freeze even the harshest deserts. Piloto's name comes from polar, or polar bear, which is, of course, the design basis, and Iototo. Iototo is a Kachina that appears alongside a Holy, and performs rituals to help bring clouds and moistures into the pueblo, to help bring about a fruitful harvest season. To me, Iototo's appearance very much looked like a polar bear, which was my initial inspiration for the concept. But Piloto's ability to bring snow is also a reference to Iototo bringing clouds, moisture, and a fruitful harvest season. Because most of the moisture we get in the Four Corners area comes from snow, and winter brings about the harvest season, so it was a natural fit. Next is the second trio of legends, created by Bonate, known as the Ruin Trio, named after the ruin they bring to anything they touch. They act as a direct antithesis to each of the Gift Trio. These three are inspired by aspects of the Hopi creation story. To give a very rough explanation, the Hopi believed there were 3 worlds before ours, but each was destroyed by some kind of calamity of man. We are currently in the 4th world, and the Hopi believe that the 5th and final world will be perfect. So first is Machus, the Deceit Pokemon, a dark sound type. Machus is based on Machni, a kind of mockingbird that convinced humans and animals that they could not live in peace together, and ultimately caused the downfall of the First World. Machus, very much in that same vein, can change the hearts and minds of Pokemon with its voice. Machus's appearance reflects more of a crow than a mockingbird, but crows are typically depicted to be more villainous, and also there is a Kachina known as the Crow Mother. Here's its Hopi name that I won't embarrass myself trying to pronounce. Machus's name comes from Mach and Ruckus, but also sounds like mock us, because that's what it's doing. Next is Hydrana, the Flood Pokemon, a dark water type. Hydrana is based on an Uktena, a horned serpent found throughout many Native American myths. It being the Flood Pokemon is based on the flooding of the Third World, which gave rise to the Fourth. It is also a reference to the 2 major floods that took place in Colorado in the Big Thompson River. The bigger one happened in 1976, and then another one happened in 2013. Hydrana floods anything it touches, drowning any plant life and destroying property. Last of the Ruin Trio is Deminata, the Scorched Earth Pokemon, a dark fire type. Obvious thing, it's a fire ant. Not obvious thing, it is also based on the destruction of the Second World, which was engulfed in flames, and to save its people, they hid in a giant anthill. Clever, right? I thought so. Deminata's name comes from demon, demolition, and Geminata, the species name for fire ants. Anywhere Deminata goes, it will leave a barren, singed wasteland in its wake. Finally, for the quote-unquote box legends of the Cornera region. If Cornera was a fan game, which it won't be, please stop asking, it would be a single title, Pokemon Eventide. Eventide means the evening, the balance just before light turns to darkness, which is a major theme in not only the legends, but the overall story of Pokemon Eventide. Anyway, here is Sohale, the Radiant Pokemon, a fire fairy type. Sohale is the embodiment of light, both solar and spiritual, the lawful good, if you will. Like I said in the lore bit at the beginning, Sohale's radiant energy created these crystals, which have the potential to change the DNA of Pokemon. These crystals are what you would find and use to create nucleotypes throughout the game. As for Sohale itself, it is inspired by a few things, namely the sun spirit of the Hopi, Tawa, who is said to have created the first world and all life on it. Fun little fact, did you know there's a dinosaur actually named after Tawa? Meet Tawahale, a theropod from the late Triassic period, with the only species being found in the Hayden Quarry of Ghost Ranch, New Mexico. So Sohale is based on a combination of both. Though, as far as design, I did bring in some elements of the Utah Raptor. Sohale's name comes from Soho, which means star in Hopi, Tawa, and Tawahale. Next is the opposite of Sohale, Bonate, the Corruption Pokemon, a dark ghost type. Bonate, like Sohale, also created crystals with the power to change Pokemon. But instead of changing the DNA of Pokemon, it changes their hearts, shutting the door to them. Sound familiar? It should. This is the origin of Shadow Pokemon. Mind blown, right? Just like in Pokemon Coliseum and XD Gale of Darkness, throughout your journey you will encounter Shadow Pokemon, mainly used by the unruly Team Echo. The technology for creating Shadow Pokemon would be further expanded upon by Cypher years after the events of this game. This links Cornera to Ore, as Cornera has Arizona as a partial inspiration and so does Ore. I even kinda had an idea where there would be DLC where you could go explore Ore in the post-game, and maybe make it a little bit of an alternate universe situation where there would be some new Orion regional forms. But anyway, Back to Bonate. Bonate is based on a few Native American myths. For one, it is inspired by Coyote, a deity that is found throughout many native tribes. In some renditions, Coyote is benevolent. In others, Coyote is a supernatural trickster with power that rivals that of the creator. So, obviously I went for the latter. Bonate is also based on the Hopi deity Masa, or the Skeleton Man, the spirit of death and the keeper of the fifth world. He is also described to be a trickster at times, so I melded the concepts of Coyote and the Skeleton Man together. Its name comes from bone, Masa, and Coyote. Last but not least is our third legend, Rakanara, the Gaia Pokemon, a bug ground type. Rakanara is inspired by yet another Hopi deity, the Spider Woman. No, not that Spider Woman, this one. Also called Spider Grandmother, an earth goddess who can take the shape of a spider. It is said that Tawa and the Spider Woman created the earth and its people together. She can also be found in Navajo myth as a helper and protector of humans, but is also said to catch misbehaving children in her web and eat them. Move over, Krampus. The Spider-Woman is depicted as creating the Earth, but also living inside of it in her spider form. She is shown living in small caves or even her own area called Spider Rock. She could kind of be described as a Mother Earth figure, so I added on the additional inspiration of the Greek goddess of Earth, Gaia. For some additional Greek inspiration, Rakanara's body shape is also inspired by the Greek myth of Arachne, a half-spider, half-woman. The part of Rakanara's lore in which she strings 4 regions together is a reference to the fact I myself combined the 4 corner states together to make Cornera. Rakanara has lived deep beneath the earth for eons, before the time of man. While being the 3rd legendary Pokemon, she would also act as the region's mythical Pokemon, and I imagine she would be the legendary there would be a movie about. And those are the legendary Pokemon of the Cornera region. Make sure to let me know which one was your favorite. We have almost wrapped up the Corneran Pokedex. Our next video will be a full look at the entire dex, which will feature some new mons that I couldn't quite figure out how else to fit in a video. But if you enjoyed this video, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. And with that, I will see you guys next time.